for employing students who are going in the field, preparing them to go into engineering. So we have developed a unique collaboration in which we have spun off multiple projects to help solve cost and training solutions for healthcare providers and nurses in our industry. So it has been a unique experience, both helping with communication and other things as we've gone along. We've had a lot of unique surprises in the collaboration, which has truly helped us become better collaborators and better understanders and consumers of our healthcare system. So I'm going to share with you one of our papers today. We are so excited about this one as well. This is of the 3D model of human anatomy for training nursing students using skeletal, respiratory, and circulatory systems. So we have several collaborators in this paper as well. We have been trying to really have the students do most of the collaboration, look back at the models with them, document the process, walk them back through prototypes and feedback, and really hone them and get them ready for working in the field. So this in particular came along as we've been doing some 3D printing projects, which again, you'll find, I'll show you at the end again, MedNet, our website where we are putting these out there for free. This came along as we were printing different organs. We started working with the local high schools and doing some recruiting. And it really came about as we realized the need for having students get more interested in STEM education, as well as solving some solutions for how much they cost up here for students to actually hold an organ, work with it, figure it out, model it. We've started doing some VR and some other things, but what we figured out is sometimes just a 3D printed version is very helpful. So I'm excited to share with you these items as we move forward in further collaboration. So I have to thank Kim Budishlich, Marquise Myler, and Cooper Gunter, who are the students who did this paper, and we've nominated for one of the awards, we hope. And Dr. Gary Maddox and Bernard Schroer, who Dr. Gary Maddox is the center director, as well as Dr. Bernard Schroer, who is our writer extraordinaire. So just sharing you a little bit of background real quick, the UH Learning and Technology Research Center, we have a huge bed lab, table lab where we do most of these trainings. We have task trainers, and these are nurse practitioner students in these pictures, but we also have bed labs. We look at everything from suctioning to task trainers of any kind of procedural task, as well as healthcare simulation. And so our research objective for this project was to develop a 3D printed model of the human body for use in training those students, in particular that focused on the human anatomy and physiology for them, so that we can tie it back. They have it in some of their core courses, but as we're teaching pathophysiology and some other things, we really need to bring some of that back. And what it helped us do was also push it further down into elementary education and high school education before it comes to secondary education, so that they'll have a deeper understanding before we get here. So this was phase 1 model development. Truly 3D printed spine, cage, pelvis is the frame. We printed and inserted 3D lungs with a heart inside that frame, and then the cervical spine segments, clavicles, the scapulas, and then the trachea. We added arteries. That was quite a task to figure out something that would work as an artery that was a low-cost solution to show the perfusion of those organs and things. So we added those made of silicone rubber O-ring cords, which was really neat. The spinal cord we added at the end, and the descending aorta. And then phase 2, the model development, which will be, it's in another paper because we have just begun finishing that. We added the printed 3D liver, the printed 3D liver, stomach, pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, and intestines. And so there'll be a few other things, but I want to just show you kind of what that looks like. So here's a picture of the rib cage. It was unique, and having to 3D print spine processes like that was not easy. So they worked through attaching and fusing the ribs separately to get it the lowest cost possible, as well as using just a common 3D printer. Doing the heart was using the O-ring for the vessels. We were able to show that brachiocephalic trunk, the left subclavian trunk, as well as the aorta, the descending aorta from the heart, to help show circulation. So I'll show you what all this looks like and what it means here in a few minutes for sure. But really, we're able to integrate these into simulation-based learning experiences, which we'll talk about a little further down. So this is kind of what the phase 1 model started out looking like. I have a picture here at the end that will show you a little bit more of it on with one of our students, Marquise Myler, and what it looks like. So right now we did it all in just regular colors. The goal is to color code that later, but we were able to put those O-ring sleeves on here as well to help stabilize the vessels. And then also we can tag the names of those on there or tag them with pins as we quiz students or learners on which parts are there and why they're there as they go through. So this is a complete list of the arteries that are in the model, in particular what the diameters were supposed to be and what type silicone rubber cord we needed to really show the vasculature system. All of those arteries and veins that come in and out of those organs, by seeing it, touching it, feeling it, we know that Kolb's experiential learning theory is something we base some of our simulations off of, and that experiential learning theory supports, if they can touch it, if they can see it, they'll remember it longer. If we can bring meaning to it by giving them a concrete experience, that we can really solidify that learning, and then we can build on it. And that's a lot quicker way than being able to do it in a hospital setting of any kind. So the very first trainer we were able to produce from this was a trainer with arteries that went from the heart to the lung and how those two organs work together. So we've started mounting each system on a board. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the body exhibit, but that's basically kind of what we're ending up doing, but not using real human beings and plastifying their arteries and veins as they did in the bodies exhibit that travels around the world to show some of this. We're able to actually send these plans to the local high schools in their tech schools, and they're able to print these, talk about them with anatomy and physiology, and bring it home even at that level. And then we're able to use it and bring it home at a greater level by implementing them here in these simulation-based learning experiences. So in my center in particular, as we educate, we have been looking for those task trainers to come in. We have human patient simulators, but a lot of times those human patient simulators will have limitations on some of the pathophysiological things that we need to teach. So we're able to set it on the side and then take a break from the actual case. They come in, they talk to the patient, they get background, they do diagnosis and treatment, and then they're able to step aside and on a task trainer do something else. So this is where we can help bring this alive. But we have a specific set of learning objectives for each of these simulation-based learning experiences, and we're able to then also test their skills, not just their critical thinking in those simulations, by having the added task trainer with it. So what we ran into with this particular project and fabricating the arteries was that the models are printed in PLA, which we use the PLA sleeves and the O-ring cord to be able to attach them, and we do that with a soldering iron. The organs were rigid, not flexible, so we looked at extra volume to really install the organs with each other. You know, using different types of materials was the biggest challenge, especially the students running into and finding solutions for that. But most of the stuff can be found at a local store here for sure. But they were fragile. We were able to re-strengthen the ribs via the software in the STL files, and able to change that design so that we could have them be stronger, because obviously the ribs in the body protect the organs, and we need to demonstrate that at some point. So further conclusions on this one in particular, it was developed by a senior engineering student and high school student, intern in just 2 months and less than 200 hours of time. Most of it was spent on improving and scaling those models based on feedback from the faculty experts who served as the advisors, and gave feedback on, you know, what was realistic, what it looked like. And so it has been really fun. It's currently being integrated into one of our simulations to really bring that anatomy and physiology home that we talked about in health assessment. And we'll be hopefully testing that out even more as we move forward in higher production in those high school tech uses and in those STEM recruiting activities to even increase enrollment at the university. But this is the completed phase 1 and 2 models. We're still working on installing those intestines. This is Marquise Myler in particular. He is demonstrating it. So we have it on an IV pole to give it a little more lifelike quality as well. And it has been super fun to see it come to fruition with the organs in it all the way through it. So you can see this has both the lungs as well as the sternum protecting the heart, with the ribs protecting the lungs, and then the various organs attached as well. So the future implications for us has been kind of fun. We have been printing additional ones. We have been breaking them out into these organ systems and the arteries and showing the delicacy of each of the systems of the human body, but also just having the engineering students write up what I call a cheat sheet to what arteries are where and what they do, what are their sizes. And in this upper one, we really started with a smaller model to just do in the 3D printing and then scaling it for size, so that we have some of the organs at all different sizes as we move forward with phase 3. And so we've mounted them to boards. We've taken them to high schools. They also have the 3D printing. So every class prints one, takes it to their science class, uses it, discusses it, and then operationalizes it. So it's been definitely a fun project in learning the materials. The students have done an excellent job of documenting the processes, taking it from beginning to end, improving communication techniques through that as well, and doing the research around it. So the learning experiences have absolutely sparked many of our students, especially the engineering students, into looking at biomedical engineering versus just our rocket science that comes here from Huntsville here, but or mechanical engineering or any of the others. Many are now looking for biomedical degrees because they've been so fascinated with the collaboration. So it's been really neat to spur on some additional thought and collaborations and solutions for these training models. Here's a picture of our building, UAH College of Nursing, just so you can take a look. My center takes up this whole 3rd floor over here. We got 11,000 square feet in the College of Nursing where we do these collaborations, train faculty, and have students. We have UAB residents as well as Auburn pharmacy students who help provide interprofessional experiences for our nursing students and nurse practitioners. And then MedNet here is that model exchange and development of nursing and engineering technologies. I know it sounds like a medical network, but it's really the model exchange and development of nursing and engineering technologies. And if you want to go visit it, please go take a look, enjoy those projects, share them. We love collaboration, happy to work on any projects with you as well. But thanks so much for having me here today. And I'm excited about what the future holds for us, especially in biomedical engineering and collaboration. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Lori. Thanks for this interesting presentation. Now I believe we have time for a few questions. Please, any question? Don't be afraid to ask anything. Yes. Mohayat has one question, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for this interesting presentation. It's really fascinating how you made the students collaborate in this sort of a research, and it's really interesting. One question would be, what are the technical challenges of making this research work, let me say. So if you could elaborate on this, basically putting in regards that, there are a lot of technical challenges in the implementation of these 3D models. I think that also maybe there are some human level challenges because you involve, as far as I understand, students. So the communication and how do you basically engage them in the process. If you could say something about this, I would be very thankful.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So it has been kind of fun. We go through multiple prototypes, and through those prototypes, at first they have no understanding of what type of medical product they're trying to design. So it's been fun for them. They have to do some of the research themselves, so it takes them through the research process, and then they model it in different softwares. So they'll have to learn the softwares first, and then they'll have to scale it for size of a realistic organ. And then we walk through textures of the different materials they're using. We have one other paper on one of the other projects here that we'll present. I think it's the 3rd presentation in this session. And we talk a little bit more about those textures and working with the different materials. So they get to learn all kinds of different materials. We've done over 26 projects and a lot of COVID infection control items that we printed and distributed and made community networks to get those items out quickly through the high schools and those community networks. So they've learned to communicate with us, but also how to explain it on paper. So their first engineering projects, their first simulation of an organ, their first modeling of that organ as well. They're documenting that, and then we go through the prototypes back and forth with feedback with the experts. So it's kind of their training, like putting on the training wheels to go through into their profession, and they're able to put those on their resumes, and they present those as well. So it on this one in particular, it was the PLA, the different plastics, the different materials, and then explaining how to assemble that so it could be repeated on multiple levels, and then the writing and the presentations of it, as well as these papers, they are collaborating on having to document the process. The first few years we did this, we did not have them keep a scientific journal where they had to write down each of those processes. So I think all of those are challenges, and then having regular meetings, we meet regularly on the models themselves, and are able to incorporate feedback between the different prototypes. Does that answer your question some?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we do list like maybe six or eight of those type of problems that they solved with CAD design and 3D printed sleeves, and then also the difference they ran into making different products adhere to one another, ran into a lot of challenges trying to figure those out. So they're providing solutions in real time, and we're not providing those for them. So it's good. It's good.
Okay, I have one question. This project is, I believe, quite huge work. So what's the duration of this work? How long does it take to realize everything you have described here?
So we usually do it over a semester at the most, and then start producing it, and then start pushing it out on the MedNet to the different high schools so they can use it. So it really depends on it. Some of the projects that we've done with virtual reality have taken a little bit longer to software, and then we've done some CT scan splitting. So if you go look at MedNet, you'll be able to look at that, and they had to actually model and explore lots of softwares. Some of those took maybe a year and a half, but before they graduate for sure, as well as we have several of them working on multiple projects. And during COVID, it was a way for them to get some operational experience. They actually took each 3D model home, a 3D printer home, and worked on these items from the SMAP Center. So the SMAP Center was probably our largest employer of engineering students, definitely the largest employer of engineering students for the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And so that was a way for them to get some real-time experience as well. And the prototypes, I could just meet, and we would put on our mask or whatever to look at those prototypes. But it took 4 to 6 months on most of them to get something they were happy with that modeled well.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer and nice presentation. Now we have to continue. The second presentation is mine and my colleague Gorazd Karar, and the title is Modeling and Simulation Adaptation of Education Processes to Epidemic Measures. Mohit, please, can you start the presentation?
Sure. Please let me know if it's working properly.
I will.
So is it working?
Yes, it is. It is stopped, I believe. It's not running.
These have a little speaker button. I know I can't hear it, but I'm not sure why, but there's a little speaker on the bottom left. Do you have to click on those?
I don't know if you hear the sound. I do not.
I cannot hear it either, just to help.
We have tested it before. It was working. I don't know why.
So you
now-
cannot hear anything?
No, we cannot hear anything.
Oh, okay. I will try again.
Hello, my name is Maja, and I'm coming from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, University of Ljubljana, Slovenia. I would like to present our paper entitled Modeling and Simulation, Adaptation of Educational Processes to Epidemic Measures.
Sorry, please let me know if you hear the sound now.
We can. That's great.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
we do.
Thank you very much.
As you all know, COVID pandemic has changed our lives dramatically, and it is true also for education processes at all levels. Today, I would like to present some problems and solutions regarding the subject modeling methods, which is one of the subjects in the first semester of the master program at our faculty at the field Control Systems and Computer Engineering. Before the winter semester started in the school year 2020-21, all scenarios were possible, from normal education at the faculty to completely closed faculty, but also different stages between these two states. We tried to find a near optimal solution taking into account the subject content and objectives, available software and laboratory equipment, but also different good practices from the past. Some of important objectives regarding modeling methods are together with the main chapters presented in this transparency. But I would like to point out especially the main two expected problems, which are continuously changing and unknown security measures prescribed by the government and different levels of students' knowledge as they are coming from different faculties. As mentioned, the government was defining new rules practically every week, from normal education to completely closed faculty, but also different levels of hybrid work were possible. Additional important factors were operation of public transport and students' dormitory. At the faculty, additional criteria were taken into account. It was of course more important to have laboratory exercises than lectures at the faculty, and also lectures for younger, especially first-year students at the undergraduate level. So flexible timetables were created at the faculty to take all these measures into account. I have to mention that our laboratory is equipped with many pilot plants, which can be divided regarding different properties. For the realization of exercises of the subject modeling methods, we have decided to use the second group as is indicated in this figure, due to their suitability regarding relatively short time constants, stability, and ability to extend modeling approaches to the usage of Lagrange equations, which are usually not explained at the first level of university study. Each pilot plant is connected with corresponding personal computer through ADDA converters. They can be addressed using developed block in Simulink, and this enables to realize experimentation with pilot plans in the same way as with mathematical models. In addition, we have developed in MATLAB also a great number of files called LABI, which stands for Laboratory of Mathematical Models of Univariable and Multivariable Systems. All files are organized through a user-friendly graphical interface. In addition, we have decided to present also AnyLogic, which extends modeling approaches to system dynamics, agent-based, and discrete event modeling. Education burden of the subject modeling methods can be divided into the so-called contact hours. These are lectures and laboratory exercises. Then non-contact hours, which are meant for individual study, and written and oral exams. Regarding the new epidemic situation, we had to prepare these activities to be realized in all possible forms as indicated in this transparency. As lectures normally start at the beginning of the semester, we have decided to realize them at the faculty or online using MS Teams. Laboratory exercises are usually postponed for a few weeks to allow sufficient material to be presented. We have decided to organize an introductory and refreshment course in simulation and system theory for the interested students during this time. In this way, the load of study hours is suitable, but it is expected that the differences in terms of prior knowledge will be reduced. Further, laboratory exercises were transformed into the so-called project work. For motivation purposes, these projects were presented at the beginning of the semester through lectures, indicating also applicability of presented materials. Laboratory exercises are usually organized in smaller groups. This year we have 2 cycles with students working in teams of 2 to 3 people. 2 projects have been prepared for each team. The first one is related to modeling of an electromechanical pilot plant. I have to mention that in both cycles the same 5 pilot plants were selected, and this was realized with the goal that the modeling results of 2 teams, one from each cycle, can be compared and discussed. The second project is related to a non-technical problem and is different for each team. Here it is important to distinguish between 2 scenarios, especially regarding the first project. In the case where exercises are realized in the laboratory, students have direct access to the pilot plant. Their task is to define and generate suitable input signals so that the output signals can support their theoretical modeling results. In the case when faculty is closed for students, we have prepared a set of measurements for each of the pilot plant and included them in the LABI environment, which is the starting point of the combined modeling approach. In the middle of the semester, all teams had to prepare a short presentation of their work, and the comments and discussions of teaching staff and their colleagues provided an important guide for improving their work. At the end of the semester, all teams had to prepare a written report of both projects, accompanied by the designed files, which represented the written part of exam, and then also orally present their solutions where also theoretical questions regarding the treated materials could be expected, and this represented oral part of exam. In addition, the quality of nonlinear models of the teams working with the same pilot plant was compared to pilot plant responses defined by the staff using a representative input signal according to predefined criteria. The team that designed a better model was rewarded with additional points, contributing to a better final exam mark. It is also important to mention that best teams were invited to further improve their work and participate in the conference entitled Automation in Industry and Economy, which was organized in Maribor, and I have to mention that the response was very good. Due to the level of epidemic in Slovenia, all education processes were realized online, which is of course not good, but introduced projects were evaluated, I have to mention also by the students, as a good solution. As this epidemic is still a problem, in the future additional efforts will be given to different possibilities of remote and virtual experimentations with pilot plans. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, this is the second presentation. Do we have any questions, please? No question? Okay, then perhaps we should continue because we are a little bit late. Our third presentation will be given, I believe, also by Lori Lioce. Is it true? Lori, do you hear me? And the title of the presentation is Development of Needle Injection Pad Trainer for Simulating Intradermal Subcutaneous and Intramuscular Injections used in student nurse training. Lori, please.
Thank you. Hello, I'm excited to be talking to you today, so thank you for having us. I am Lori Lioce. I'm from UAH College of Nursing. That's the University of Alabama in Huntsville's College of Nursing. I am here to talk to you about a unique collaboration we have with the UAH SMAP Center, which was established in 1988 to provide leadership and support to Army, NASA, and other government agencies and private sector organizations. The center really serves the Army by not only providing knowledge to resolve current issues, but also as a critical link between local university students and the future roles that they'll eventually fill. So in saying that, that we have partnered with SMAP, that's Simulation Mapping and Production, and we have collaborated on over 25 projects this year. So this one today is just a small snippet of one of our projects, which can be found at UAH MedNet, MEDNET. The MedNet is a model exchange program between nurses and engineers that we have created, and we house all of the projects and skills there on that website. So I'll show it to you at the end just to tell you a little bit more about it. But let me share with you quickly our paper. So the development of a needle injection pad trainer for intradermal, subcutaneous, and intramuscular injections used in student nurse training. So we do use it for more than nurses here in the program, and we are about to really take off and pilot that well. There is a huge team that is involved in that pilot. Myself, as the nurse lead and nurse faculty lead. We have a couple of students, Sydney Gunter, Dr. Gary Maddox, who is the head of the UAH SMAP Center, Ishella Fogel, a colleague and helping in the program, along with Bernard Schroer, our writer extraordinaire, who is helping us make sure that we document this process as we go through it. So I'm really excited to be working with them and happy to be here at the 18th International Multidisciplinary Modeling and Simulation Multi-Conference. So hopefully this will be fun for y'all as well. This was really a simple project in theory, we thought it would be, but the research objective was to develop an injection pad trainer for nursing students that both felt like human tissue, combined a couple of the current training pads that we have, but can't afford to have one for every student, that allow for multiple types of injections. And I'm going to kind of show you what those look like on the next slide, but that would show a bleb, a little bubble after the correct intradermal injection is something that we're not able to do. Like we go buy hot dogs literally and try and do it between the skin of the hot dog and the hot dog itself. So the needle insertions are important in each of these needles. Obviously, the insertion goes to a different layer of the skin. And so the introduction to this was explaining to the engineers what we need and what to help us design that would feel like that. So we went through several models in training, but the direction of the needle is where obviously the medicine would go, depending on what we're doing or the test. And so we had to create a multi-layered injection pad. The experimental design really came with them taking a stab at doing the research for multiple different types of materials, making them with the various mixture ratios for each layer, and then how to get silicone rubber and then tactile multilayer to really make a realistic feel. Each of the layers needed to be different to represent those layers I was showing you of the skin, the epidermis, the dermis, the subcutaneous tissue, and the muscle. And then to make a very thin fourth layer that we could make that bleb with, so that when we give a tuberculosis test, one of the ways that we do that is on the epidermis, and we just insert just the tiniest amount of fluid right here under the skin, and you can see how thin that epidermis is. We need it to bleb up. We don't want it to go into the next layer. We may not see the right reaction when we're testing patients for TB, and that's how we do that. So one of the ways that we decided to do this really inexpensively was just pour them up in some little jewelry boxes, because it gave the right dimensions for this and it didn't stick. So it was really nice to find the mold first, assembled a bunch of different pad examples based on different types of materials as we went through there. And then we wanted to see how the fluids lasted with those. So not just was the objective to develop the pad, but it was do a low cost needle injection pad to perform all of those. The thin fourth layer was super important, and using different materials to fabricate it. We used smooth on Dragon FX skin, Pro Skin silicone rubber, part A and B, and then Slactor tactile multilayer, which we were talking about. And we used, we made about 14 different pads with different mixtures of it, and then we sampled that out to faculty members. So this is an example of the pad with the different dermis layers, different layers, the dermis, the fat, and the muscle, so that we could look at that in particular. We took all of the prototypes that we made, and we had faculty, 36 faculty test them for not only the feel, but the look, as well as the performance with those injections. So pad 7 had the best feel out of all 14, followed by pad 8 and followed by pad 6. This right here shows you the mixture ratios that we had to do to get the different layers for sure. The pad 7 really ended up being the one that had more slacker in the dermis than the others, and that was the #1 pad that the faculty liked. On the survey in particular, the feedback we got on these pads, it is kind of an art pouring them up. So we are right now producing 30 something for our family nurse practitioner program to use in suturing this fall. And then we'll have some learner feedback as well. But pad 6, 7, and 8 had very similar mixture ratios, but you could tell a difference even in pad 7. The pads had slacker ratios, as we showed you on the dermis layer, and the 0.5 was the better version of the model. The muscular layer mixture were identical for all the pads, so it didn't take any slacker to get the feel of skin. This is what the thin epidermis layer looks like that we can lay over the top. Just the texture of it itself adheres to the other material, which has been really nice to produce this bleb that we're talking about. Again, we would do an epidermal injection to make that bleb, and we put a little fluid under there. The way that it works currently, we would check that back in 48 hours. If there was a reaction, you were positive for TB. If there's no reaction, you aren't. But we teach all of the nurses that as well, and so we wanted to make sure that we had a way to test it. It's a very sensitive injection for patients, and so most of the time, if you can't make that bleb, you're not going to get the best read on the test. So we asked for feedback from that nursing faculty on the bleb itself, and we pad 6, 7, and 8 did the best bleb into that epidermis, and that took a mixture ratio of 1 millimeter layer was 1 to 1 to 1, which was really interesting. So that was pretty easy to just pour up a big pan, if you will, of that. And so we wanted to just share our conclusions here with you, that the smooth on slacker tactile multilayer is vital to obtaining the feel of the skin, which we did not know that when we started this project. We currently are able to save money by producing those for our learners, both in procedural training. We've also been able to use it to extend and repair some of our current task trainers by just having that skin that we can put on it over them. That's that epidermal layer, that really thin 1 millimeter one. So not only did it solve a few issues in our training lab for healthcare providers, for the bleb to learn that technique really well, it also provided a solution to extend our current task trainers, which can cost thousands and thousands of dollars, some of them up to 60 to 80,000 a piece, to train healthcare providers and nurses and nurse practitioners. All the way through. So the slacker is needed for both the dermis and subcutaneous, but not for the muscular layer. And then the epidermis pad should be removed after each injection. It gives us a way to reuse the model. We're able to just lift it off and put it back down. It's very, very cool how that they adhere to one another without another chemical or product. And then we also figured out that we can make this trainer also include one other skill test that we do for, it's called a tinting test, but it's about skin turgor and the hydration level of a patient. And so we're able to do that as well. So we're able to get 2 additional benefits out of it for this process in particular. For future recommendations, we want to complete the full learner feedback study this fall for 2021, and then also assemble the layers into packaged pads. Explore removing injection fluids from the pad if we're not going to make them disposable, because we're considering making them disposable now. The cost is so little per pad, and you can see a little bit more about that definitely in the paper. So I encourage you to read the whole paper. And then if you have any questions, I'll be excited to answer those for you as we walk through this process. And then I did want to go ahead and share the MedNet, where you can actually get the details. You sign up for free, download all of the 3D printing and products that we've produced so far. This is the first one that we've done with skin and making it a low-cost solution for our lab. So I hope that this was helpful for you to just get a quick overview, and then I would love to talk about the results and the discussion a little bit more as we get to meet together this week. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this interesting presentation. Do we have any questions? Excuse me. Do we have any question now, please?
Quiet group.
Yeah, it seems so. I have one question. You have mentioned that you have used, let's say, the feeling of these pads, how they are, let's say, appropriate for the injections training. Do you use also some technical data when you have been preparing these pads, or only the feeling, let's say, from experienced people?
Currently, we've been just using, so there's FX Pro is something that's typically used in the industry. So we didn't have to come up with our own materials or test them. So yes, we've been using mostly experienced experts who teach the skills themselves. And so we were able to provide all of those models in a survey, and they were able to determine between them which they think would be the most realistic, and including in the way we give those injections. So, but not mathematical measurements per se of the injections yet. Now that's probably our next step after we've gotten the feel right for the students, and then we're going to get the student feedback, and then we should be able to test it even further.
Yeah. Do you have any evaluation? Let's say, of course, students have to have some practice also in living patients, but the number of exercises can be shortened by these pads, of course.
Yes.
Have you made any, let's say, evaluation how you decrease the number of in vivo experimentation?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So one of my what I'm certified in is healthcare simulation, right? So the simulation, and I did some postdoctoral certifications in that, but rapid cycle deliberate practice is one of the methods we use for task training. And we do know that getting over the fear of putting a needle in somebody and then doing it in 4 or 5 different ways takes a little confidence building, right? And then we have infection control pieces that we look at. But we do know when we put them in a simulation, we teach them the task, but then we need to immerse them in it where they have to explain it to the patient while they do it. And that speeds up the process of getting them to the bedside to do that. So we typically say we have formal training, and then we let them do open lab practice, and then we have them come back and do a validation on it as a junior in our collegiate programs, and then we will they go to clinical. So they do tons and tons of it after that on live patients, especially with COVID and all that. They've been helping with injections and other things. So it's been really neat. But the simulations themselves and the simulation-based learning experiences, we're able to do 1 to 2 per course, and they're able to progress quite rapidly. So they'll get their didactic information, they'll get some hands-on skills, and then they'll do it in an immersive situation where they have to talk to the patient in real time, talk to providers, call all the consults, and it really creates a much more robust training than doing any of that in isolation. And what we learned was if they just do the task, they can't do the communication as well. And so the patient feels like they're just an object, right? So having the task trainers available makes a huge difference in the simulation-based learning experiences.
Yes, thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
Now we have to continue with the next paper entitled Practicable Paradigms for Semi-Automated Expert User Post-Processing of Deep Learning Segmentations in 3D Radiology. I believe the presenter will be Gerald Adam Zwettler. Is it correct?
This is right, yeah.
Please.
Let me share the screen. Hope you see it and hope the video will play with sound.
If you can talk a little bit louder.
This talk today on behalf of Julian Yanni. Title of our talk is Practicable Paradigms for Semi-Automated Expert User Post-Processing of Deep Learning Segmentations in 3D Radiology. We are affiliated at the University of Applied Sciences, Upper Austria. What is the motivation of our work? Segmentation has a high impact in medicine, e.g. for 3D printing, augmented virtual reality, quantitative assessment of the disease progress, or to build statistical shaped models besides visualization. Utilization of deep learning paradigms for segmentation is now state of the art, providing precise results and a very high level of automation. Nevertheless, in rare cases, these models might fail or at least lead to suboptimal results, but there it's hard to correct this black box results of the deep learning models. So there is a demand for interaction for semi-automated post-processing based on expert knowledge. Therefore, maybe live wire, graph cut, graph segmentation are possible strategies. So the problem statement is deep learning models generally show a black box nature, and there might be demand for expert user-guided post-processing in case of errors or local inaccuracies. State of the art thereby is you can use markers that are trained together with the deep learning model as presented by Sakhinis, but the drawback thereby is that you need to train the deep learning model together with the markers. So existing deep learning models cannot be utilized. Similar click positions can be derived as an additional layer for FCNs, and then graph cuts can be applied to adjust the results finally. Nevertheless, once again, the deep learning model needs to be trained together with the interaction. In contrast, deep learning results can also serve as multidimensional fitness function together with the input image, and then graph cuts can be utilized to allow for semi-automated post-processing, as we have presented in 2021. Research questions we try to answer in this work are if graph segmentation is perfectly applicable for deep learning result post-processing in a very generic way. So we ask, can graph segmentation applied to deep learning results allow to conserve the general high accuracy of deep learning models, while graph segmentation might allow to correct deep learning results in a semi-automated way, only where required? And can graph segmentation corrections of particular slices be propagated on the entire 3D slice stack, so to minimize the demand for user interaction? And how high is the level of inter and intra-observer reproducibility of this graph segmentation strategy? Material, we are using the medical decathlon dataset of 2017 with some 200 volumes of CT scans of the abdomen, allowing analysis of the liver parenchyma, and the deep learning segmentations we try to improve are preliminary work of ours. We are using the UNet cascade axial coronal secondal views. This work has been presented in 2020. Yeah, so here we see the deep learning pre-segmentation. The accuracy is really, really high, as you can see above, with dice coefficient around 97.5%. And a normalized surface distance of around 99%. We are using thereby UNets for axial, coronal, and secondal segmentation. All of them are combined with one additional methodology of our paper today. We are using the graph segmentation based on the fitness function calculated from the image and the deep learning results that anyway show a very high accuracy. We are using this deep learning segmentation to determine all regions from the graph segmentation fragmentation that show an overlap with the deep learning of at least 50%. Then these regions are picked. Yeah, so this way the graph segmentation can be run in a fully automated way. You see the fitness function in the middle. The graph segmentation leads to a fragmentation, and then with the 50% threshold, we can apply a relatively weak graph segmentation approach based on the deep learning pre-segmentation. But the key aspect of this approach is that it allows for subsequent manual corrections to add or remove fragments if they are missing or invalid. So here you see the fragmentation. A user can deselect the graph segmentation fragments, and to increase the effectivity and efficiency, a larger region can be fragmented into smaller regions by steering the granularity of the graph segmentation approach. So higher accuracy required, lower user interaction where the larger regions are sufficient. Another interesting aspect of our paper is slice-to-slice propagation. If there are some errors due to the high accuracy of the voxel volume, they might be present in the neighboring slices too. So if one slice gets corrected, as you see below, these corrections can be fully automated, propagated through the entire volume. So there is no need to post-process a huge amount of slices. So the results, automated graph segmentation runs are expected to have a slightly lower accuracy compared to the high accuracy deep learning model. We see a marginal trade-off of around 0.4% with all of the metrics, which is a good investment, allowing to post-process in cases of error. For the correction, we have a click and correct prototype, and you can there propagate all of the results to minimize the effort one has to take. What we also have analyzed in depth is the intra-observer reproducibility. So if the results are stable, if you process one slice multiple times or let one slice be processed by multiple users, we see that in case of errors, all of the users were able to increase the accuracy with minimal effort, and the standard deviation in the changes of the quality metrics is also around 1%. So really stable results. The results of the graph segmentation, if the user is eager to improve the results, are very objective. So here we see a volume with the slice IDs below. In the middle area, we had some slices where the deep learning model did not perform well, and with some marginal clicks, one can correct these areas with the higher blue line. Here we see the slice propagation. If you correct one slice here on the right side, you can propagate to the previous slices or to the subsequent slices. Front and back, all neighboring slices can be corrected. So in a really large bunch of slices, one can then correct the results. So the conclusion and outlook, we can run the graph segmentation in a fully automated way. The trade-off compared to the deep learning models is really low, but slice propagation allows to reduce the effort and conserve the corrections for a large bunch of slices. Intra-user reproducibility is high, and the proposed method shows a high potential to be integrated into clinical routine. Future work will focus on user experience and to improve the graph interaction with all of the strategies available from the graph science domain. Thank you for your attention, and special thanks to David Richard Holmes from the Mayo Clinics in Rochester, where the idea of this research work was founded in a research fellowship. Thank you.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Do we have any question, please? I have one question. The technology is sometimes well accepted, but sometimes also not so well by medical doctors. What are your experiences regarding this aspect of transition of your work to, let's say, medical practice?
You're totally right. That is one of the drawbacks of modern deep learning models, that you get results, but you can take them or leave them. So right now, still in the automated, semi-automated analytics, expert users are involved in the process with their experience, checking the results slice by slice, not to make there any huge error when relying on automated models. So This is also featured by this post-processing technology, either by graph cut or graph segmentation as shown in this work, that you can handle the results on your own. Of course, once again, you have to check all slices, but in a pretty fast forward way.
Thank you. Any other question, please? If not, thank you again. And we are going to observe our next presentation, which was prepared by Agostino Brusone, Marina Massai, Javier Pernas, and Andrea Raverberi, I believe. Javier is the speaker today, and
Yes.
the title of the presentation is Improving Operational Procedures to Access Industrial Facilities and Urban Areas During Pandemics. Please.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen. In any case there is any kind of issue, let me know.
I can hear no voice, only the slide.
You don't hear the song?
No, no sound is
Okay,
available.
I'll try to do it again. Because I said here, include computer song. Now?
University of
Yes,
Vienna.
it's okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
from the beginning.
Hello everybody, my name is Javier Pernas and I am research assistant at simulation team for University of Vienna in Italy. And I'm going to share with you our last paper entitled Improving Operational Procedures to Access Industrial Facilities and Urban Areas During Pandemics, in collaboration with Agostino Brusone and Marina Massei from Dime University of Vienna and Andrea Reverberi from DCCI University of Vienna in Italy. Nowadays, although we think we have already found the right way to fight COVID-19, the reality is that we are still dealing with its effects. We will do it in the short and medium term. So, as I think we have been doing so far, we must focus on acquiring as much knowledge as we can out of it in order to anticipate the next global crisis and face it in the right way from the beginning, something we didn't do with this one. When it comes to the decision makers, they must be then thoroughly trained and skilled to cope with these complex scenarios that, as COVID-19, may uncover unexpected consequences. We don't have to think about virus and pandemics. We can just see around the corner with toxic industrial material that is stored in our factories, placed in towns, and they prone actually a real and actual threat of such kind. So with this in mind, we present here an innovative simulator devoted to assessing and improving operational procedures in critical situations. These operational procedures aim at managing population and their access and control to, for example, urban areas or industrial facilities. Well, we could have those toxic industrial material we talked before. Critical situations refer mostly to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear crises, which are introduced in the simulator, where urgent and efficient response is needed to prevent major casualties and avoid threats. If we briefly were to refer to background of this work, we must set the origin in the H1N1 influenza outbreak back in the spring of 2009, when we as well started to focus on the real impact in terms of social, legal, and economic effects that pandemics by that time might have. The thing is that it was not until the arrival of COVID-19 pandemic when we actually realized how unprepared we were. We started to grasp the fact, as it's written here, that actually all the procedures and plans that we had developed beforehand weren't applying the right way, and we weren't able to deal successfully with the effects of such a pandemic. To this end, we believe that modeling and simulation, along with serious games, may be partly the key to explore new paths, to develop new procedures, and to learn from them and how to apply them to tackle future problems related to these causes, with nimbleness, of course, and effectiveness. So, coming to the methodology, our simulation-based serious game has been fully developed on the video game engine Unity 3D, and we have used object-oriented programming approach to develop it, which responds to a twofold purpose. First of all, it guarantees a high level of interaction. The modularity of Unity 3D allows us to effectively develop an immersive experience, but also we actually need maximum flexibility to implement new game modes in the future, different data input and output, and also combining with new technologies like virtual reality. Finally, we have also taken into account the fact that it allows us to easily play the game on different devices such as smartphones or laptops. So regarding the serious game, we are going to start with the elements that we have introduced, and specifically the different units that are available to the user. They are represented by bubbles, as we can see in the picture, of different colors depending on the type of unit we're talking about. So first of all, if we start with the green units, actually they are containing forces that are in charge of providing healthcare support and accommodation services. They are the basic unit to the user, and the one he is going to move in order to contain population from accessing a specific zone. Then we have also blue units that represent police forces and assist the first ones, the green units, the containment ones, in cordoning areas and containing effective units. They have, for example, limited capability to hold incoming flows of people, but they move rapidly. Then we also have gray units, military forces that are not displayed in the image because they become available only when user requests their service. But of course, these have a negative impact on the final score. They are actually military forces, as I said, and they have high capacity to contain flocks of people. Finally, on the other side, we have the yellow units and red units. Yellow ones are crowds of people that are suspected of being infected, whereas red units are those that are confirmed to be infected. So they can spread the pandemic to other kind of units, including users ones like containment units. And user must keep an eye on unexpected contagion events. The game consists of 3 different game modes based on the behavior of the units explained in the previous slide. As basic first mode, there is the free mode, which is just a visualization mode. Here, the user is a mere spectator and cannot modify the scenario conditions. But actually, this free mode is a key mode in order for the user to understand the main game features and get acquainted with controllers and views, and also understand the different procedures units follow by default. Afterwards, from free mode, the user can navigate to competition mode. In this case, starting from the strategies that have been already implemented in the free mode, the user performs the role of the designer. So now he is able, he will be in charge of design adequate and smart strategies, procedures, and plans by using the units that are available to him. As I said, he must understand properly antagonist units like that is suspected and infected on free mode in order for him to develop and to create a successful strategy. Finally, we have also added a new mode, an extra mode, which is a spread mode, that in this case, the game mechanics change a little bit, and it's based on the fact that infected units' ranks can increase. The main insight is to make the user understand that sometimes there are situations when the unit location, the infected unit's location, can be blurry or unknown. So the cordons to start to be established have to cover a wider area in order to contain and control the problem. So when we talk about specifically computational expert mode, we have also implemented a score function which is based on different features that the game presents. Here we present some of them, and they are based also on different options that are available to user, like the change of weather, for example, or the area of the city. For example, we can mention the type of unit move. Of course, it's not the same for the user to use military units, or police units. So the cost will be reflected as a penalty in the score function. Also, depending on how many meters every unit has moved, user incurs a penalty. The aim, of course, is to develop the most optimal strategy. We can also cite the percentage of contained units as a positive impact in the score function. Actually, there is a reward per every infected unit that has been contained. So the goal of the user is completely clear. When an infected unit enters town industrial facilities, which is something we want to contain, the penalty is much more substantial than normal, so we impact negatively on the final score. So finally, as main insights and conclusions, we aim at using this simulator in order to educate people in the development of operational procedures. Actually, the fact that the simulator is presented as a game enriches the experience by means of engaging elements from gamification and game design. And also, we foresee the potential of this kind of tools in educational research, in particular as a decision support tool in different fields that range from pandemics to contamination issues. So that's all from my side. Thank you all for attending this presentation, and I hope you enjoyed and understand the main insights gained here. In case you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me.
Thank you for this interesting presentation. Do we have any questions? I have one question or comment. This is, I believe, a very demanding work or to develop such, let's say, a complicated simulation game. And I believe it is very difficult actually to prepare in advance different scenarios which can happen in a certain environment. Have you been using certain, let's say, areas, perhaps in Italy or somewhere else, to predefine the roles of certain, let's say, accidents which can occur in the environment or around a certain town or small country? I don't know.
Yeah, actually, in order to define the different scenarios, different situations, as we want the user to tackle when he's playing, the game. We are also collaborating with other partners on our simulation team from different authorities in Italy in this case, and some experts on the field that have much more idea than me. Because of course it's very demanding from the point of view of the programming part and of the development. But the most important part in the end is the conceptual model, the ideas that are behind, and these kind of protocols, or how to define a protocol through the 3D. Of course, and it was mostly my work in this project, there is the part of, okay, how can we make the user establish those protocols through the game and test them in an easygoing and friendly way, so the interface is not that hard to use. But yes, regarding the ideas, we are collaborating with other partners, as I said, from Italy, which are the ones that provide us with those, sorry for repeating the same word, but ideas to implement in the game.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? If not, thank you again. And
Thank you.
now,
Excuse me, I have a question.
yeah, please.
So basically, there are two questions. The first, I haven't understood maybe properly from the presentation the users that this research addresses. So are they the authorities, the decision makers, or they are just normal users? Maybe I don't know, other kind of users. This is the first question, and the second would be. Have you considered implementing, for example, stochastic scenarios using something like a knowledge base or an artificial intelligence capabilities or something like that?
Okay, so regarding the first question, the type of user, we are actually addressing, or let's say orienting the application for a professional level. Of course, this is just a demo, it's an ongoing project. There's still a lot of work left to do, but our user would be, as you said, professionals, authorities, etc., that have to develop those protocols. As far as the stochastic scenarios is concerned, the second question. Now I'm going in blank, sorry, but I think this simulator we implemented some stochastics regarding the movement. Yeah, okay, sorry, didn't. Now I remember it. For example, in this game, we implemented an A-star algorithm to guide the units, which is not stochastics, but at least it's an advancement. Of course, there is that idea on the table in order to, for example, start from a random scenario where the infected and those that are suspected of being infected could be stochastically distributed in a random way from the beginning. This is not implemented yet, but of course it's on our plans.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
just that the algorithm that you have implemented. What is it called? Sorry.
A-star. It's typical one based on the extra algorithm in order for the units to perform, let's say, normal paths and not cross, for example, water or forbidden zones.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, any other question? Well, if not, we have to proceed to the last contribution entitled Influence of Cannula Angle for Cardiopulmonary Bypass using Computational Fluid Dynamics. I believe the presenter is Gionata Fragomeni. Is it true? Yes. Please, Gionata. I believe we have again the problem with the sound. I cannot hear the sound. I can see the transparency, but I cannot hear the sound. it seems that Mrs. Fragomeni has some problems. Perhaps I suggest that Mohamed is helping again with the presentation from his computer. What do you think about this idea?
Yes, sure, but at the moment I don't have the presentation already downloaded in my PC. So I would suggest Mrs. Pergomeni to try to make the consent for the computer sound in her computer. In the meanwhile, I'll try to download it. Mostly I cannot hear.
Mrs. Fragomeni, first, can you unmute your computer? And turn the camera on.
Excuse me, could you please open your microphone?
Please
Cannot hear you.
unmute your microphone. We cannot hear you. I believe the colleague from Mrs. Fragomeni is there, but we can see you, but we cannot hear you. So you should unmute your microphone. We cannot hear you.
Okay.
Yes, now it's okay, yeah. Now we can hear you.
The title of this work is
okay?
Influence of Cannula.
Okay, yes, now we can hear it.
Bypass
Thank you
using
for your help.
computational fluid dynamics. The university is in a new campus in south of Italy. Cardiopulmonary bypass, CPB, is essential for almost all cardiac surgery. More than 150,000 CABG, coronary artery bypass graft, interventions are performed all over the world every year. The main function of cardiopulmonary bypass is to replace the pump action of the heart and to ventilate the lungs, thus allowing perfect perfusion to organs while the heart is stopped to carry out the surgery. To do this, there is a need to connect the patient's circulation with the cardiopulmonary bypass circuit through cannula. Venous blood is channeled towards the heart-lung machine thanks to the use of a venous cannula, which can be positioned in different locations before returning to the patient's circulation via an arterial cannula. As for the arterial cannula, it can be positioned in ascending aorta, supraortic trunk, axillary artery, femoral artery, left ventricular apex. The position of cannula is of great importance and can affect the success of cardiac surgery. There are a lot of physiological effects that are associated with cardiopulmonary bypass, like, for example, thrombocytopenia, activation of complement factors, immunosuppressant, inflammatory responses, etc. Manipulation in ascending aorta during cannulation and clamping may induce the formation of embolisms that cause brain damage. For instance, computational fluid dynamics, CFD tools have been used. CFD simulations allow to get some very important information on surgical techniques and on devices in a non-invasive way. This is the workflow for the CFD simulation. The models start from a real geometry and allow to get some very important information in a non-invasive way. A 3D real aorta model was generated from computer tomography images using segmentation and reverse engineering techniques. 3 different models were made based on the angle of the cannula. Case A, 0-degree angle. Case B, 15-degree angle. Case C, 30-degree angle. The number and distribution of the mesh elements was optimized to give a 10 to -5 error under any investigative condition. The mesh was optimized by analyzing the error trend as a function of calculation time. COMSOL 5.4, a commercial software package based on finite elements method, was used to carry out the computational studies for the post-process and to visualize the results. The Paradiso solver was employed to solve the Navier-Stokes equations. The flow was considered as laminar, and 3D Navier-Stokes equations were used as governing laws. CFD analysis were performed in order to obtain the numerical results affecting blood velocity, starting from finite element models of aorta reconstructed geometries. The table on the right shows the flow trend in the thoracic aorta. It can be seen that as the angle changes, the flow decreases. The same considerations can be made by referring to the figures. Moreover, from the analysis of the streamlines, it can be seen that in case A, there is a stagnation area near the clamping area, whereas the angle variation produced an orderly flow pattern in the supraaortic vessels. Furthermore, results highlight that the cannula can generate a swirling flow with stasis in ascending aorta, downstream anastomosis, and flow separation in supraaortic vessels, whereas the flow from the cannula produces resiculation in ascending aorta and orderly pattern in supraaortic vessels. In conclusion, this non-invasive assessment demonstrates how the insertion angle of the cannula causes significant changes in aortic hemodynamics during cardiopulmonary bypass. The position of the cannula seems to generate a steadier flow pattern with good resiculation also in the ascending aorta. On the other hand, even though it seems potentially more thrombogenic, it offered an enhanced flow output selectively to the supraaortic vessels. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions, please? I believe Mrs. Fragomeni is not with us, but her colleague is...
I am Mr. Fragomeni.
Ah, sorry, excuse me.
No problem.
I have made a huge mistake. Excuse me. Perhaps I have one question.
Yes.
When we are developing different mathematical models or simulation models, there is always one huge problem, and that is the evaluation of the model. What has been done regarding the evaluation of this model which was presented now regarding
Yes, we evaluated this with experimental data during cardiopulmonary bypass surgical intervention, and we have a qualitative validation, but we have to have a quantitative but is validation, but it's very difficult to estimate the flow during the intervention. Yes.
Are medical doctors already using this mathematical model or simulation model
Yes,
regarding their practice?
Yes, we use this in order to planify, to program, to planify cardiovascular intervention, surgical intervention. Yes, with surgeons, and we have in our university a lot of cardiac surgeon, and we work with this.
Thank you. Any other question? If not, I would like to thank all the participants. I believe you have made a very interesting session at this conference. And with this, I believe I have to conclude our session. Thanks again to all the participants, and goodbye. Special thanks, of course, to you, Mohai. Without you, we would be in huge troubles. I don't hear you. You are muted.
Thank you very much. I was saying it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also for your help with the questions.
Thank you.
I hope the next time we are going to realize such a meeting in real, not only in online version.
That's right. Rome, Italy. We'll be there.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to everybody.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.